So it's Romania-Tonga.
Absolutely.
That's the game that we're going to preview right now.
Yeah.
This is in the Arc de Triomphe in Bucharest, taking place this Saturday. And it's going to be refereed by AJ Jacobs of South Africa. Two Scots, Ben Blaine and Sam Grove-White on the touchlines. Ian Tempest will be having a stormy session in the TMO box.
Yes.
And then as far as the colour of this game, Tonga have the edge overall, which is unsurprising. The South Sea Island team winning twice and Romania once.
Pretty decent record. A chance for Romania to level that record up. It's a pretty infrequent clash.
Is not in that way for Tonga.
Well, Tonga obviously having had a rough enough tour, including getting pumped by the French Barbarians last week, whereas Romania, to their credit, they started by beating that Uruguay side, who were much touted and had just qualified for the World Cup. They did due diligence and absolutely whooped the Netherlands as well when they were forced to, and they look in decent stead. They look like they're a bit of a force now in that Arc de Triomphe after much to do about getting that stadium properly available for them to just play in unopposed by their own government, their own sports minister trying to annex it notwithstanding. But it seems now that they have a bit of momentum. They definitely have a good coaching ticket. They seem to have invested and are still eyeballing that World Cup spot, that Europe 2 spot that all of these European teams are kind of building towards. So they'll be looking to keep that momentum going and seal a good home win against what is probably a slightly beleaguered Tonga side at this point.
No question. I have been very impressed with Romania. Truly, I think they're very well organised. They appear to be really well coached. I think Andy Robinson is unquestionably doing a good job.
True.
We're just seeing the nuts and bolts of their games coming together. It was, as we referenced in the Russia game, they started the season with an ill-disciplined kind of nowhere performance against
side that they probably are better
Russia.
than and were better on paper in that game, and just they were frustrating themselves, and Russia were punishing them.
Weren't moving the ball well, were slow, were trying to take on these teams in physical battles. Then they were kind of blessed a little bit against Spain that the Spanish went and melted down and gave away 1 million red cards. They were only the physical match of that team, but they were blunt enough on offense that they only managed a 6-point win in that game when they should have won it by more. Then they come up against Portugal, get absolutely blown away on the defensive end, look kind of nowhere, and then pull it out with a ballsy finish to the game. Where they just
good clutch.
Showed their maul and their strength and their forwards' ability to take control of a game, even against a pack that was not great from Portugal, but as we've seen in the month since, wasn't all that bad.
No,
they absolutely blew them away in that last 10 minutes. But then since then they've really picked it up. They had that great game against Argentina where they were super competitive. Really, then they've in this window they've hammered Uruguay really in that second half, 29-14, all over them. And they absolutely put the score up against the Dutch as well. And they seem to have, they're solid defensively. They have a decent jackal game. Good scrum.
More backs as well now.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say good scrum, good line-out maul, all of that's still there. But they move the ball well.
They do.
They move the ball well. They've got some nice players out there. It's not the Vlaiku team anymore.
This is it. Well, I was reading actually about Vlaiku and a couple of his compatriots who obviously didn't make the squad for this most recent window. And this most recent window was the first squad that didn't include, because of not including him, members of the under-20s side from 05. They were the dream team of 05 that they produced a lot of their talent, and the spine of that old team was kind of that. And Vlaiku obviously is their top point scorer, top caps, a legend of their game, but has since moved on and has opened the door for a slightly more exciting young backline that is starting to purr a little bit in some of these games and starting to kind of add strings to the bow. They're looking quite a well balanced unit.
Tamani Vaiovasa midfield is great, and the back three is class as well. Onutu and Dumitru, just each of them grabbing a try a week, and Malinte from fullback has slotting kicks, moving the ball.
He's taken that Laiku role of just I'm a member of the back line. I kick the threes,
and he's another quick guy as well. Their speed out there is really encouraging. They're starting to score prettier tries.
That's it. Just more variety to their tries scored. It's often a critique of slower teams that, and to be honest, Ireland as Ireland fans, we've been guilty of it a fair few times. Is that the picture of all your tries is very similar, and they're all hard graft and all very narrow, and you don't really grab cheap cheap tries out wide with your speed. Romania are starting to find some of those tries, and there has been space that Tonga have been leaving. Obviously Tonga have been outmatched in all of their games. This is their first time facing a tier 2 side in quite a while, since their World Cup qualifiers over the summer, and they've all of this autumn campaign has just been spent. I suppose maybe they outranked the French Barbarians, but not really, and they were pumped.
And they got well beaten by them.
Yeah.
It's easy to look at Tonga in that regard and say they're struggling, but obviously, you know,
we don't know.
They were completely outmatched in the games they've had to play, and obviously they have a limited deck to choose from as well.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's stacked against them. In some ways, it's stacked for them. I think we forget, like in our watching of Rugby Europe, just like in the same sense that the European sides have had a decent dominance over the American sides, the South Sea Island sides have always dominated the European sides.
It's true.
Every time they've met, it's been all South Sea Island absolutely dominating the contacts, shocking them.
You can see that. It was only Fiji, Georgia is the kind of flagship thing of that.
Georgia managed to break the spell of Samoa and Tonga themselves only in about like 2015 kind of era. That's when they started to get a handle on those teams and win tight enough games, and they do usually now beat Samoa and Tonga. They don't beat Fiji, and that's kind of a telling enough thing. And Georgia are obviously the big dogs of Europe. Romania are a little step down below them, but it's going to be, I think, a decent litmus test for how much the tournament is coming on, because I think Romania, listen, they're flying high. They have all the momentum. They have a healthy squad. They're as well stocked as they can be. And Tonga, by contrast, are just a hodgepodge of talented players, but they're just thrown together, demoralised over the last number of weeks, and as vulnerable as you can imagine they'll be. So the odds couldn't be more stacked in Romania's favour, and it'll be interesting to see if they can get the job done, and if Tonga can just find some class plays with some of their class players.
Tonga do have some class players. Fafitas look good as well. Like, they have a few Fafitas in their squad. I was talking about the one on the wing, but Walter Fafita, I believe. But they have some serious units, and they will be encouraged that they're facing a team that is on their level, on their tier 2 clash here. They don't have to go into an egregious mismatch. They don't have to kid out in England against a team that's like bulling up and purring up to get ready to face the Springboks, and they're just going to hose you on the way to that. They don't have to be in for that kind of contest at all. It'll be interesting to see how emotional they are at the beginning. Obviously they'll have their own kind of kibi or not kibi. I think it's the Sipi Tau in Tonga. So I'll see how emotionally charged they are in front of that away crowd, which they do get good noise in that Arc de Triomphe. Should be a fun atmosphere. And for some of those collisions can be one, like Romania, a very competent pack. Tonga are just very massive men.
And that's always been what's happened to these big European teams, is that the explosive nature of the South Sea Island contacts has shocked them a little. The fact that they just put sort of mean dynamic footwork into their physical carries, where your Georgians and your Romanians are more an honest barrel chest into you, that it's physical and you find it hard to stop, but it's more of a sort of a grinding physicality. There's kind of an explosive pointiness to the there's exactly right. There's a pop to the Tongan carries and the Tongan tackles at times that can shock a team like Romania.
Some of the Tongan tackles over the years have been absolute chiropractic maneuvers more than anything else. Like they are the biggest of those big South Sea Island peoples. They are massive men. Like, you look at Big Ben Tamifuna, who is a tight head for them as well. Like, you try and shift him. Romania had good purchase at the scrum against tier 2 sides, but
he's
you try and
move
him. I don't know.
He just crazy. If he can hold himself up, you're not moving him.
It's true. Every now and then he has the explosivity to carry as well. You're not tackling him either. When he puts it in, he'll gas himself out if he carries like it too much, but he can be a right handful. And they'll need to arrive knowing that this is a good chance to arrest some of that momentum and try and do right by Tom. I'm sure that they're a very proud people always, and they tend to rock up to things like World Cups at a fever pitch. They tend to overperform more than their South Sea Island compatriots at World Cups, certainly than Samoa. And
this side has been together for a few weeks now. They should hopefully they'd be well rested as well. They didn't play I suppose they played the Barbarians last week, but I mean, I think they're probably in a position where they can have figured, I would hope, some stuff out as far as offensive and defensive systems, and put together a competitive performance here against a tough Romania team. But as far as who's going to win, I'm kind of between minds on it.
I am between minds.
I think I'll say Romania. I've been very impressed by Romania. I think
I'm leaning the same way, to be honest. Like, it would be it would be amazing to see Tonga just rock up and be like free to play a game that they're competitive in at this level,
and just show what they can do. Maybe,
but I wasn't fully impressed with them even in those Samoa games over the summer when they were facing that Samoan team that was a little bit hodgepodge itself, and then they were well outmatched. And I think they've worn down the amount of punishment they've taken over the last few weeks, whereas Romania flying high. I think the home side has the edge in this one is my prediction. I think,
but it'll be tight for a time.
Tight for a time. I think it might be around a 10-point or maybe even 10 to 15-point win for Romania.
Yeah, I'd say a little narrower than that. All right, like I would predict it could be one of those 3-3 at half time.
Could be that too.
Games.
Yeah, it could be a snowy game in Bucharest.
It depends on whether or not Romania can actually get some purchase on the offensive end, because they've been quick, but they've been physically on top in those games. True. That they've been quick. And like as much as they could dominate Uruguay, and that was impressive, they're not going to dominate the Tongans
in the same
easily.
physicality. And then, like if Tonga can get Fafita 1v1 on that wing, it'll be tough stopping him.
It remains to be seen if Val Vasa is as good as he's looked and can like open up this Tongan defense, and maybe he can, because he's looked awesome. And if he gets some of that own South Sea Island juju going and starts breaking up the game, then they do have wingers who can finish, and that's where you could see them maybe pad the score a little bit. But I don't see Tonga scoring too many tries, maybe 2 max, I would think.
Maybe.
So I think it's going to be like a slow burner of a game, that maybe 2 tries to 1 Romania.
Okay, yeah. Fair call. Let us know what you think, who you got. If you have any Romanians or Tongans down there, drop it in the comments below. But I think with that, we are going to move on to Thank you for tuning in to the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed what you hear, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below as well. We enjoy hearing your opinions too. Thank you.